Okay, we are live. So we are really excited about this, Nathan. Thank you for taking the time to tell everybody about this.
No problem. It's a great program. I mean, I said this, I think, last time we talked, but you guys are way out in front of this program compared to other agents in the market. So I definitely commend you on that. I had a realtor just yesterday saying, I heard something about this Hometown Heroes. What should we do with that? Like, well, it's really, so I did get, it's, talked a little bit about it, but I thought, my gosh, you guys are like way, 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 way out in front ahead. So that's great. So.
Well, only because of you. If we didn't have you, we'd be out there like, what is going on?
I don't know.
We've heard of this thing.
You've done your homework, so that's for sure. I watched your video on your website this morning. So it's very nice. Very good job. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's nice to have a partner that we can go to, you know what I mean? Because we have really asked you 1.5 million questions. You've done a lot of research for us, and but it's been successful. Like, we have really gotten people out of rental and into home ownership. It's amazing. So I hope more realtors really take advantage of the knowledge that you have now, in the program. So.
Well, and I appreciate that, because you guys asking me questions has helped me become more knowledgeable in it as well. So even up until this morning, that one question that we talked about, I think we answered part of the question, which was, yes, somebody can come on, even if they own a home and they haven't lived in it for 3 years, you can be on that program, but they have to live in the property. They cannot be a non-owner occupant. So and that's kind of how mortgage lending is almost, it seems like there's so many rules and things we always are looking up. So it's nothing unusual that we have to check things out, just make sure that things are lining up the way we think they do. But obviously this is a completely different program. So it's, it's good to have that information. So.
Right, for sure. And it was really interesting. I didn't even think about them having to be a first-time buyer, but it's really good information to know that if your parent or your other occupant, whatever it be, other occupant can qualify, you can get the mortgage, which is great. So
yeah,
you just have to live there. You have to occupy,
Exactly. Now there is one caveat, and maybe you already know this, but you don't have to be a first-time home buyer if you're a veteran.
Right.
So so that can be waived if you're a veteran. So that's great.
Hey Nathan, can we just do a brief overview of what we're discussing for anybody that might not be familiar with Hometown Heroes and this is their first exposure?
Absolutely, yeah. So Hometown Heroes was a program that Governor DeSantis signed into law. It became effective June 1st of this year. $100 million was allotted for down payment assistance for people looking to either buy their first home or veterans buying subsequent homes. And what the state is doing is they're giving people up to 5% of the purchase price with a max of $25,000 to go toward their down payment and or closing costs. So it really takes people who may not have the savings currently to be able to purchase a home, and gives them an opportunity to get into the market. And one of the neat things too for me, I think, is that in the past, a lot of times if we had somebody that couldn't afford to get into a house, we may look at say USDA loan, for example. And currently in the market, with the lack of inventory that we have, it's really hard to get buyers offers accepted on government contracts. So it can still be a conventional loan with as little as 3% down. And with that 3% down payment, like I say, 5% of it can go toward the down payment and part of the closing costs. So it's an awesome program that they've allotted. There are some restrictions and things which I'm happy to cover, but that's kind of the nuts and bolts of what the program is.
I know that we've kind of, we put the questions that we've been asking you, we kind of just put them in as talking points. So I'm just gonna kind of read them and we can kind of go over them and, you know, I'm sure if we're having the questions, everybody's having the questions. So,
Sure, yep.
okay. So one of them was, what is involved in the buyer's education training? Like each buyer
Yeah.
has to go through a class or a course. What does that involve?
Correct, yeah, so anybody that wants to go through Hometown's Heroes program, then they need to go through a home buyer's education course. Home buyer education is really, I think of it, there's three main things I think that home buyer education does. One is just talks about home ownership. So obviously when you buy a house, you know, comes some responsibilities with that. And so it talks about what it means to be a homeowner versus a renter. The other part of that, it kind of goes along with it, is the maintenance involved. So they go through and talk about, hey, if you own a house, these are the things that you need to be aware of and that you're going to need to take care of or account for in your budget. And then the last thing is the budgeting. So they want to go through and really make sure that people understand, if I buy say a $200,000 house, of course I have my mortgage payment, which includes the taxes and insurance, but what other expenses should I kind of plan for as far as utilities and just helping them develop a budget so that they look at what the borrower's income is currently and just help them to understand, okay, if we have this house, you know, we need to, you know, set aside some other monies for utilities and maintenance down the road and things like that. So it's really to try and make buyers more educated and to make successful homeowners so that, you know, that they have, you don't run into any issues. Obviously, none of us want to put someone in a position where they're not going to be able to afford the home or they're going to struggle. So I think it's just a way of trying to help people to understand what it is to really own a home. So.
Right. You know, buyers should go through that anyway. You know, there's a
I
lot
agree.
of first time buyers that I wish I could send through that program, you know, because the education is invaluable. It really
Yes.
is. And, you know, when you're buying your first home, you don't think about the maintenance issues and you don't think about, you know, you're really thinking just about the mortgage and stuff. So I think that's a great program.
Yeah, I agree. And anybody can do it. It doesn't have to be through this program. So a lot of our PMI companies offer homebuyer education, and it's all free of charge. So if anybody wants to do that, if you're talking to anyone, that is certainly something I can set them up with. So.
Awesome. Thank you.
On that note, I have a question about the program, the education program. Does it go into the pitfalls to avoid while you're in the process of closing on your home? Because I know we run into a lot of things there often with buyers.
Yeah. It does. And I would, you know, and so if anybody might be watching this, just what we're talking about is if you're out buying a house, like, hey, you shouldn't go purchase a car at the same time, or, you know, don't open any credit cards, don't spend down your savings. You know, if you switch jobs, that can be an issue. Potentially it's not, but you always want to talk to the lender up front and just make sure that they're in the loop and confirm if everything's okay with that or not. So anything you want to do, you just need to talk to the lender to make sure it's not going to create any issues. And even if it doesn't create issues for you, you're still going to have more documentation, paperwork involved when you make any changes. So just make sure you're, like I say, just speaking with your realtor and your lender about anything you're planning on doing. Great reminder. Irene, I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. Okay. What are the terms of repayment? What are the terms of repaying whatever benefits are given to the qualified home buyer? Because it really is a grant. It's not a freebie. So
Correct. Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, so it is a grant, but I will say that there is no payment required. No interest accumulates on the loan. It's a loan that the state's giving you. And that loan does not have to be paid back until you either sell the property, or if you've made all 360 payments at the end of 360 months, 30 years, you would have to repay it at that point in time. So at some point down the road, it is a program that you will have to repay, but there's no interest that accumulates on that money. So, I mean, it's the best possible way to, be able to fund that money if you don't have it, knowing that, you're in, and think about it this way. If I'm making, say, $3,000 a month in income today, with appreciation and things, how much more is that $3,000 my income going to be 30 years from now? Okay, it's going to be a lot more than $3,000. So I'm paying back much later down the road with more money that I have than I would have today. So it's really like it's it's just a phenomenal way to be able to fund that those expenses, because you're repaying it later at much lower cost of money. So
Right. And just to expand on that a little, there's no prepayment penalty. So if somebody wanted to take chunks of that off during the 30 years, they can just start taking chunks. So if
absolutely
at the end of 30 years, there's no payment due.
correct.
Yeah. And then if they resell, property generally keeps its value, unless something crazy goes on, but that could be taken out of the equity of the home if they decide to resell prior to 30 years.
Yep,
It's
absolutely.
not, yeah, okay.
Yep.
Perfect.
You're
I
right.
love the repayment with no penalty, because you can chunk that down, in
Sure.
small bites, no interest, small bites, and you're free to go. So
Exactly. I
love
agree.
that. Okay, next one. Oh, we already covered that. Is there interest on the repayment? No. I think we talked about this in the beginning, although I don't know if we were live and people could hear us. So the cosigner, they can qualify and cosign. They just have to they have to occupy the property within 60 days.
Correct. Yeah. So an example that you brought up with a buyer is if we have a buyer say that they work at Walmart and their mom is a nurse, and mom and daughter are going to live in the property together, then they can buy that property together. And as long as one of them is listed as one of the heroes and a nurse is, then they can go through this program and get the benefit of the grant. But yes, they do have to both occupy the property.
Okay, so that I had another question to that, which is down further on our list. What if the qualified hero either divorces, but they don't have to sell the house, or doesn't transfer deed or whatever, or death? What if one of the hero is in one of those situations? What happens to the existing occupant and that benefit?
So this is a mortgage that doesn't get rewritten or re-underwritten. So once the loan closes, then if anything happens down the road, they're not going to come and say you need to repay that. It's the paying off of the mortgage, the first mortgage, which is going to enact that other mortgage needs to be paid as well. Because remember, any mortgage that we do, it shows up on the title work. And so when the title company, whether you're refinancing, you're selling, then that mortgage pops up when they do their title search. And at that point, that's when that mortgage is going to have to be paid back.
Satisfied.
So,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. And it is essentially a second mortgage.
Correct.
It is a second mortgage. It doesn't take first priority, but it is a second mortgage.
Correct. You got it.
Okay. I will get to these two questions in the chat in a second. Let me just get through our initial list. I already asked that. Why is the occupation list expanding so rapidly? Will this continue? What does that mean what does that mean to me if my occupation is not already listed?
Good question. And so I'm going to do a little name dropping. I talked to Ralph Mazzullo frequently, and we talked actually on Father's Day a little bit about this, and then I asked him some questions this morning. And the program is basically set up so that it can be reoccurring. I mean, the state has plans on just continuing this program so that it's ongoing. And so they also want to help as many people as possible. So I think the reason why the list is growing is because they recognize that they may have missed some people, but the whole idea of the program is to really, like Ruth said in the beginning, is to really help lots of the different frontline workers that have helped us get to the last couple of years. And that's kind of what spurred this on. So I think that they're trying to make sure that anybody that falls into the essential worker category, they wanted to set up a program to help them. And so they've added as many as they feel like they can. When we talked about that, this question prior to the rollout June 1st, I was in some trainings with the state, and they said that they wanted to try and offer it to as many people as possible. And so if you're not included, I would, definitely encourage you to continue to check back with your realtor with guys. I think you guys would be a great source to try and help them figure that out. And so I think, yes, it will continue. Maybe not at the pace. I mean, I tell you what, though, it is a huge list of occupations that people that they're willing to help. So so I think we'll be able to help actually a lot of people through this program.
Can you name off a few of the surprising occupations that you might not think of?
Yeah. I thought you might ask some questions about that, so I had it up. So yes, sorry, it's a long training.
In the meantime, while you're looking for that, you were talking about, they're going to try and replenish and they're going to try and keep going with the program. And what's really neat is the $25,000, every time it gets repaid, it just goes right back in to help another family, to help another, so that I think it's cyclical, like it's trying to just continue to roll, so I think that's great that the repayment funds are still dedicated to the program. They just go right back into the program.
Yeah, and in addition, Mr. Mazzullo told me this morning when I had questions about if I thought that the program would continue because $100 million, that's a lot of money, but it will get used up eventually, obviously. And so my question was, well, do we think that the state will continue to fund this program, or what's the plan? And he told me that Florida Housing Finance Corporation has the ability to utilize other funds to continue the program. And so essentially it's up to them, but he said he thought the program will continue. So so that was, I think, one of your questions maybe further down the line, but yes, and that obviously when people do repay, that helps replenish it as well. But that may not happen as quickly in the first couple of years because people are utilizing the program. But I think that the goal is to keep this program funded and moving forward. But I would also caution people too, and I wouldn't say if you're thinking of waiting another year or so to buy a house, my personal opinion is buy now. I mean, prices are going to continue to rise. Rates have already gone up a little bit, but they're still really, really good. So, I mean, my personal opinion is just to tell people to, utilize this program as fast as you can. So some of the occupations you mentioned, some of them make sense, like, firefighter and police officer and veteran and nurse, but some other things like a correctional probation officer, a 911 safety communicator, a librarian. That's one I wouldn't have thought of. Yeah, and then early childhood educators.
They just have to have a certificate. They just have to be a certified.
They have to be like for example, there's also an acupuncturist. There is the Florida Board of Acupuncture, and they need to show us a copy of their license in order to qualify. So there are some people that may I don't know. I'm not an acupuncturist, but there may be somebody that does that that's not licensed to the state. So that wouldn't work. But as long as we can get a copy of their license, to the state, then that would work. Occupational therapist, a speech pathologist, lots of things that you may not think of. Athletic trainer, that's at the school. So yeah, lots of different categories of people we can help. So.
And I haven't seen the lists, the additional occupations that have been added. But it sounds like pretty much everybody, well, not everybody, but the way they kind of track this is by having a certification or a license through the state of Florida. Is that correct?
Correct. That's one of the requirements. I have to get a copy of that. That's right.
Do you know if they've added truck drivers, the people that deliver the food that go on our grocery store shelves by chance? Because that would be, that person's a hero to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Although at this point in time, I do not believe they're on the Hometown Heroes list, but they may qualify for one of the other bond programs through the state. So I would still encourage them to apply and see if we can help them with one of those other programs.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so I don't know, Ruth asked if she can interject, but I think that was while I was talking prior. So anybody who needs to interject or just, okay, perfect. And I'm going to let you take over and just go down the list of questions as
I
well.
have no idea where you are on that list, Irene. I apologize.
Okay.
I've not been following it, but I did want to ask Nathan to just remind us about first-time home buyers. What's the definition of that? Because I think oftentimes I, for one, I'm always like, first-time home buyer. Oh, but I've owned a home.
Yeah, great
I'm not
question.
qualified.
Yeah. A first-time home buyer is somebody who has never owned a home or somebody who has not owned a home for at least the last 3 years. So if you've not owned a home for 3 years, we still classify you as a first-time home buyer, and you would qualify for this assistance if you've not owned a home for 3 years. It's a great point. Yeah.
Well, on that point, I have a question because this nurse mother, right? She had owned the home, but she didn't live there for 3 years. It was a rental property for 3 years, and she was still going to be able to qualify with the daughter, even though she owned the home.
Correct. Yep. Yep. In the own house, she had not lived in a home for 3 years, and so we would classify her as a first-time home buyer, which was new to me too. I wouldn't have thought that just at first glance. So when we took that question to Florida Housing, they said yes, that does qualify. So
Awesome.
So it sounds like the moral of this story is don't assume, check, ask, inquire, see if you might qualify.
I agree. And the other thing is that, hey, you know what, it just takes, if there's something that, I mean, the guidelines are extensive, but there wasn't anything that specifically talked about that. So anything you have a question on, I'm happy to, if I don't find the answer, that's what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna go to Florida Housing. And I think it did take maybe a day or two for them to get back to me, but I kept pestering them. Eventually they responded and told, gave us the answer, which was positive. So anything you have like that, either, I'll either be able to give you the answer or we'll find out the answer for you. So.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so besides the RES luxury page or the video that we did on YouTube, one of the questions was where can buyers find the information on if they qualify? And you really can go to our website and find that out, but if they can't, where else can they go?
Yeah, I honestly, I mean, when I looked at your site had all the information that I would send somebody to if they were looking for information on the program. So I think the easiest thing is just to have them go to your site. Obviously they can always Google Hometown Heroes program, but you're probably going to get inundated with lots of information that may not be as helpful. So my personal opinion would be just go to your site, and then you have a great little contact us tab in there as well, which people can fill in their information and you can get back to them, or at that point, then you can either, you can obviously have me talk to them as well, but I think it's a great place for them to go is just to go to your site. So
awesome. Thank you. And that is resluxurygroup.com. Thank you, Heather, for making such a great page for us for all that information. It looks amazing. resluxurygroup.com. Okay. And thank you, Nathan, for saying that. It's nice to hear that we have the best information out there. We love
you
that.
have everything you need right there. Yep, I agree.
Okay, Shelley and I ran into this, and this is a question that we had just recently asked you. We know that any overage from closing costs or down payment can be used to pay down principal. But the question we had was, can it be used to close an appraisal gap?
Yeah, good question. Let me, first of all, the first thing you said was, can we go back to principal? They really only want $1,000. They don't want more than $1,000 to go back towards principal.
Okay,
So, so that's the first thing. But the other question is, can it be used for appraisal gap? And the answer is no. So you cannot use this assistance to meet an appraisal gap, and you can also not use it to pay down debt that you would need to qualify. So like there's instances where somebody may apply with me and I can make a transaction work, but maybe they need to pay off a credit card in order to make it work. And they cannot use these funds to pay off a credit card in order to meet the requirements. So
okay. So it's pretty much strictly for closing costs and down payment. And then if they have $1,000 or less left over, it'll go down to principal reduction.
correct, you got it.
All right, awesome. We would never suggest anybody but you, because we know that you are, you've already learned. And as we ask you questions, you continue to learn. So we don't think we would ever go to anybody else with this program. But can every lender offer this program?
Great question. Every lender can offer the program. I would say, I've spoke to some other lenders. Most lenders that I speak to are offering it, but there's a lot that are not. And so the other thing is that just like with anything, the more somebody utilizes the program, then I think then the more knowledgeable they're going to be and the better service you're going to get. So I already have, I mean, this program just started June 1st. We already have our first loan in process with this Hometown Heroes program. And so, yeah, I would say I'm happy to help and answer any questions. The other thing, as I would say in this program, is that the state determines the interest rates on this program. So it's not like you're going to call one lender and get one rate and another lender get another rate. It's all the same. So it's really the service that you're going to get from the lender. And so I would say I think we do a really, really good job of getting everything done in a timely manner and keeping you really well informed along the way. So.
And I agree. I can attest to that for sure. And you did have to get certified too, correct?
Yeah.
Like we had to take, we had to take a training too to get put on that site, and it said that mortgage brokers who wanted to be involved had to go through training as well. So we know that you had to go through that training. So Brad has a question, and then I have couple other questions, but Brad, I'm going to mute. You can take over.
All right, Nathan, you just mentioned the state regulates that interest rate. So when you're talking about that interest rate, obviously you're not referring to the 25,000 because there's no repayment with that. So are you talking about the overall loan?
Very good. Yes. So the first mortgage, the actual mortgage that we're using to purchase the property, not just the down payment assistance portion. So yes, the state tells us what interest rate to charge, and it is different depending upon which program. For example, in any given day, somebody that is going through an FHA loan, for example, or a VA loan would be a different rate than a conventional loan. Also, it depends on conventional loans. It depends on the borrower's income. So when somebody's below 80% of the area median income, it's a lower rate than if they're above the 80%. And in addition, to make it more confusing, is the rates change daily. So, I can't, like I could tell you today, I did look at the rates this morning just to kind of give you an idea. Today on an FHA, USDA, or VA, the interest rate is 5.625. On a conventional loan, if we're under 80% of the area's median income, it's 5.875. But if it's above, then that's 6.5%. So, so it is something to consider. So when we talk about this money that we're getting, if somebody has the ability to put 20% down and pay all their closing costs, and we say, do we look at this program or not? We may or may not look at the program in that situation, because obviously if the interest rate on a conventional loan today, let's just say it's 5.75% versus the state's 6.5%, maybe that's not the best decision. But we can work all those numbers out and figure out what the break even is. Do you plan on staying in the house for 10 years, 2 years? All that would help us to determine what's the best the best program for somebody. That's what we do every time. In any situation, we're always looking at what is the best scenario for somebody, and which, what can we do to help them the most. So, so those are different things we look at. So
That's a good distinction. Thank you.
mhm.
For sure, for sure. Okay. Can this program be used by a veteran who wants to refinance an existing loan?
Great question. This is only for purchases, no refinances. So, so on a refinance though, especially like in a VA loan, we can typically just roll all the closing costs into their loan as they refinance. So they may not have to have any out-of-pocket money to do that, but this program specifically is for purchasing.
Okay. If two home buyers have qualifying occupations, can the benefit double?
No.
That would be
Great
nice.
thought,
That
but
would be
no.
interesting. Okay. RES Luxury Group, for more information on Hometown Heroes.
I have a
How
question.
fast, sorry, Ruth, want to go?
No, you go ahead, you're ready.
Okay. How fast are you able to pre-qualify?
Okay, so great question. Let me talk to you real quick about the difference between pre-qualified and pre-approved.
Sure.
So pre-qualified, if you call me today and I take an application and I run your credit, and with everything you've given me, it looks okay, then I can pre-qualify you. I can say, based on what you verbally just gave me, it looks like we should be fine. And I can say you're pre-qualified. That is very different than being pre-approved. So we really encourage all borrowers to get pre-approved as fast as possible. And how do we pre-approve somebody is by going ahead and getting all of their income and asset documents. And then I can have a chance to really review that the information that I was given is the same information I received. And anytime I have any questions, Fairway is really good about being able to, if I have anything I need or have any concerns or questions on the file, I can send that to underwriting, and within usually 24 hours, I hear back. So pre-approval process can still happen very quickly, but pre-qual can happen right away. So.
Right. And for pre-approval, really, it's it can happen on our end and your end pretty quickly, but the buyer needs to provide that information. That's the stumble, is if they can't get their information to us quick enough.
That's right. And I will say this too, if you call me and you're self-employed, then chances are I'm probably not going to pre-qualify you unless you can read off your taxes to me right on the phone, because there's certain things that I have to, when we look at tax returns for a self-employed borrower, it's a little more complicated. So normally we'll want to see those in that situation before we send out anything, but there are times when that doesn't apply, but I would say in general, that's what I would say.
Okay, now that actually just brought up a question for me. What if you have a qualifying hero that has a certificate but is self-employed and going out and doing their own thing, like a massage therapist, right? They have their certificate, they work for themselves, going around, blah, blah. How much harder would that be to get that person qualified?
It's really not harder. It's just that I want to make sure that, because a lot of people, and it's very common, it happens a lot where somebody that's self-employed will call me and they say, hey, I make $100,000. And I say, okay, great. And then I get their tax returns, and what they really meant was that they received $100,000. And then they have their expenses for all their supplies, and they have their travel expenses, and they have marketing expenses and all the things that they have as part of their business. And then once they take all those expenses off, let's say that income from 100,000 goes down to 60,000. Well, we typically have to use that 60,000 to qualify somebody. There are a few things we can add back in, but in general, it's going to be not the same amount that somebody received. And so that's why I want to get the tax returns and just confirm we're all on the same page.
So essentially your income is what you're paying taxes on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
All this talk of pre-qualifying and pre-approval is getting me excited, guys. I want to buy a house. I think I know somebody that can help me. Nathan, I'm going to call you later.
Sounds good.
You're so funny. Brad, as we're generally discussing a first-time home purchase, would you advise first-time home buyers to get pre-approval or pre-qualification? Yeah, we just,
Yeah, pre-approval. Definitely get the pre-approval. And I would say this, Fairway, I'm gonna give a plug to Fairway.
please do.
We have a, it's called 3-2-1 go pre-approval process where I can not only get you pre-approved, I can get you approved. And so what we do is we, just like anytime, we take an application, run credit, then we get your documents. I take those documents, I send them into underwriting. They come back with a condition sheet. Normally, most of the time, underwriter will have a question about 1 or 2 things. As soon as I get them those answers or get the documentation in that they need, we have an approval subject to appraisal and title work. And then you're really approved. And basically all we're doing then is looking for the right property. Once we get in contract, we're ordering appraisal and getting the title work back, and we can close. So it saves time. It's can help you in negotiations as a buyer to try and when you're saying, okay, yes, I need to finance. I'm not doing cash, but I'm all the way I'm all the way approved. And there's a special pre-approval letter we can send for buyers that are willing to do that. So I definitely encourage them to do that. And then it's up to them, if they want to.
Yeah, it's pretty standard these days that, if you don't have a pre-approval with an offer, you're not getting taken seriously. So we highly suggest everybody get pre-approved, talk to a lender. We need some sort of documentation before we even submitting offers. Go ahead, bro.
Nathan, would you kindly put maybe your contact information in our thread so anybody that's viewing this now or later can reach out to you? And if you are going to reach out to Nathan, please let him know that you saw this through RES Luxury Group, so he can put those two together. That'd be great. Thank you very much.
For sure, for sure. Thanks, Brad. All right, so those were all the questions that we had that we were asked to pose to you. I am going to mute myself. Okay, wait. Well, now there's all kinds of stuff in the chat. Somebody else is going to have to take over.
Can I
So
bring up
really
the
just
elephant?
unmute yourself and go ahead. Go for it.
Can I bring up the elephant in the room? And I'm sorry, Nathan, I just love to do this. So we are constantly running into battles over roofs right now.
Yeah.
On all of our transactions, it doesn't really matter how good the roof is or not, it's a problem. So that being said, I keep thinking that this program could help people, and I want to run it by you. If they know they're going to have to put a roof on that house that they fell in love with, resources are not endless for any of us, right? So they only have so much money. Can they use a program like this, even though they had the money for closing costs, and then be able to keep the money to do the roof? Some kind of strategy.
I'm going to say that I'm going to give the props back to you. And you had the best strategy I'd possibly heard of, which is, yes, utilize this program if you qualify, even if you have the money to be able to pay your own down payment closing costs. Utilize these funds, and then with the savings that you're going to get from not having to put that, that you're not going to have to spend, your money for down payment closing costs, then you can use your own funds then to buy your roof, and you can get that done. I mean, a lot of times what I see is that, and it's not every time. There's plenty of transactions that go through without an issue, but there are times when the insurance company is saying, hey, we'll let you close on this transaction, but we want you to put a new roof on, and you have 90 days, or you have 180 days to put the roof on. And so this is a way that you could use your own funds to pay for the roof, even though you don't have enough money to pay for the roof and the down payment closing costs. So use the program. That will help you with your down payment closing costs, and then the savings that you have, you can use to pay for your roof. So I thought that was a great idea of how to utilize the program and get you in the house when that's a potential issue. So
now, does that work in a case, because we just had one where the insurance company absolutely would not insure the house without the roof prior to closing. And so through some of our business partners, PJ Roofing stepped right in and was able to throw that roof on that house for us, but the seller and the buyer were sharing in the cost of the roof. So is it possible to still orchestrate something like that, and the buyer puts funds into escrow for that purpose?
Well, if you do it prior to closing, like it's kind of what it sounded like, then it's not an issue because as long as they're utilizing the funds for down payment closing costs, which it sounds like they probably were, I mean, even if you're doing 3% down, that's 3% plus the other 2%, you're probably going to have some funds left over that you're paying. So you're utilizing all of your own funds. You're losing all of the Hometown Hero funds for the down payment closing costs. Any of your own funds can then go for the roof. Now, if you're going to do an escrow, that's one of those things we'd have to go back to the state and say, do you allow an escrow? I would assume that they probably would, but I would never just assume. So I would say we would want to obviously just confirm that that's okay. So.
Thank you.
I just on that note, now I don't know about escrow holdbacks and all that stuff, but when we took our training to be able to, be the realtors with the answers, they were saying, the guy from Florida Housing said they don't look at your assets. So in order to take advantage of this program, you don't have to be below a median, whatever. But he said you can have $100,000 in your savings account and we don't look at it. It's not a matter of not having the money to do it. It's a matter of being the hero and having access to that money as a benefit, which I thought was phenomenal. That they don't look at your assets and it's not part of a, that kind of a program, so.
That is absolutely right. They don't look at your assets, but they do look at your income.
Right.
So just keep in mind, if you think if you're trying to decide, do you qualify or not, it is a pretty liberal income amount. Like in Citrus County, the 2022 income limit is $118,950 per year in income, and it's just for whoever applies. So let's say that you're a nurse practitioner, you're doing really well, and you make $100,000 a year, and your spouse works in construction, makes another $50,000. If just the nurse practitioner applies for the program, and we don't put the spouse on, then that still qualifies. So it's not a household income limit; it's just an income limit for whoever's on the loan. So.
Okay, perfect. Now, if he had to be added to the loan because of credit issues or something, then that income would immediately get.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Okay. Anybody else? Let's see what we got going on down here. Every mortgage. Yeah, it's just our information. Is there a list of documents we can tell somebody to gather to have on hand when they start to make the process, to help make the process easier for themselves so they aren't scrambling at the time the documents needed?
Yes.
Awesome question.
Yeah, anytime somebody applies for a loan, we have to document income and assets. So if you're employed, you need to get me your last 2 years of W-2s and your last 30 days of pay stubs. And for any assets, we would want to have your last 2 months of bank statements. If it's a retirement account, for example, maybe it's a 401k that you have, and you receive a statement quarterly, I would just want the most recent quarterly statement. We always need somebody's driver's license as well. And if we're going to go through the Hometown Heroes program, we will need a copy of that license that we talked about. So we need that as well.
Okay, now I have another question. Every time you bring up one topic, I have a million more questions. What if somebody has a crypto account, right? And they have money in cryptocurrency? Is that something that has to be shown or not?
Crypto, they just come out with some new guidelines. Before, crypto was not allowed, and so probably I think about 6 months ago,
right?
We can use crypto, but they have to if we cannot use it for reserves. So if we're going to use it for down payment funds, then they actually have to liquidate that crypto, and then we have to show the documentation of all that. So you'll need to get me your statement of what you had in your crypto account, and then once you liquidate it and it goes into your bank, then I need to get your bank statement, show that whole transaction. So it can be used, but there are additional requirements that we would have to adhere to on that.
Okay, but it couldn't be used as asset.
No, but honestly, if we're looking at Hometown Heroes, they probably don't have to have a lot of assets anyways. I mean, you really you could do a USDA loan or VA loan and have really no assets and utilize this program for all of your funds. So,
Right.
um,
Yeah, I
so
was
that's
going down a
possible.
rabbit hole thinking of other mortgages and,
Yeah, yeah.
so, okay. And then, for a first time timid home buyer, what's the fee for a consultation?
No fee. So we don't charge any fees, just like you guys. We get paid when the transaction closes. So I receive no compensation up front. I'm happy to help anyone and to answer any questions that they have. And if somebody doesn't qualify today, I try and give them suggestions of what things need to happen in order to qualify in the future. But there's no fee to check into this program.
Okay, awesome. And
And
then, I guess, what are the what are the credit score limits for this program?
yeah, so the very minimum credit score to qualify for the Hometown Heroes program is a 640 credit score. If you have a little higher score, let's say you have a 680 or above score, then you may be able to qualify for a higher price house because they let you go a little bit higher in your debt to income ratio with a higher credit score. If somebody, let's say somebody has a 630 credit score, one of the things that we can try and do is we have a credit repair company that we work with
Okay.
that we can put somebody in. It's a nominal fee that I cover for people. So if they, if I feel like, somebody's really, really interested in buying and they're willing to do the work, then, and this is relatively new, we just started this probably in the last few months, but yeah, we'll cover the cost for them to get started on that. And they do some really great work to try and help somebody, especially if if we have a 630 to get to a 640. It's a little
Right.
tougher if somebody's got a really low score, but that doesn't mean I won't help them. We try and help everybody that we can. So.
Love that. Love that. Okay. There's lots of building going on. Can this program be used on new construction?
Good question. I was going back through some things this morning. I was doing a little brushing up myself, and I was surprised to see that if it is a government loan, like a VA loan or a FHA loan, and it's a 2 to 5 unit or 2 to 4 unit property, the property has to be at least 5 years old. Outside of that, if it's a new house, and it's a single family home, then that property should qualify. Now, I will say this, this is not meant for a construction loan. So if you find a builder and you want your builder to build you a house and the builder needs to take draws in order to get paid, that's not what this program is utilized for, and it will not work. But let's say you have a builder that is building a brand new house currently and it's halfway done, or let's say he has a lot, he's getting ready to start a home and he's willing to finance the project through the completion of the home, then yes, that absolutely qualifies. Basically, you're purchasing it with the help of your assistants through the builder at the end. And so yes, that can qualify. So there are some times when new home could work.
Okay.
So I would say they should check with you guys and you can figure out with the builder what they can do. So
Awesome. Okay. If a veteran is applying, does it have to be a VA loan, or can it be applied? Can a veteran get it on a conventional loan, or does it have to be?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, no, you have to be a veteran to do a VA loan, but you don't have to do a VA loan if you're a veteran. So.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. Everybody unmute and discuss.
I think that was extremely informative. I'm sure there's more questions that are going to pop up, which is why we put our contact information in the thread. But that was awesome, Nathan. Thank you.
Good.
Absolutely. And this is a good example of why it's so good to have an expert to talk to, because look at all of the questions just sitting here. We just keep on spewing out questions because there's just so much. It's exciting and there's so much that we don't know.
Yep, I agree. Well, I feel like the same way. It seems like probably, several times a week I'm in the guides trying to confirm this or that. There's lots of information in mortgage lending. it can get overwhelming. And if you're a consumer, I would say not to get discouraged, find the right realtor partner, find the right lender. And I think it can be a much simpler process and definitely more rewarding.
Go ahead, Shelley.
Are you clapping or raising your hand on that one?
I'm raising my hand. You know, that's odd for me. I just wanted to give a shout out to the Hometown Heroes program and Nathan for, I'm currently searching for homes for a BA buyer. And they were not prepared with closing costs. One phone call and, within a matter of a few hours, she found out that she was able to qualify. And so we're able to move forward, because if it hadn't been for Hometown Heroes, they would have had to stop their home buying search in order to save some money for closing costs. So you definitely got my buyers into a house. So I thank you for that. And I thank Hometown Heroes also.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I agree. I totally agree. Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay, anybody else? We're good.
Good.
All good?
Nathan, again, thank you so much. You know that you are probably going to hear from one of us today with another question. So.
That's fine, no problem at all. I enjoy working with you guys. You're definitely professionals, and I appreciate the relationship that we are growing. So
For sure.
Great
And
working
we
with you
do as
guys.
well. We do
Yep.
as well. So, all
awesome.
right. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a beautiful
Thank
day.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys.
Bye.